When I first eased the Driftwood Queen onto what I thought was a public lake, I didn't plan to start a local legend. I just wanted peace. Some quiet mornings, a fishing pole, maybe a cup of coffee that didn't taste like office burnout. The lake shimmered in front of me like a promise. What I didn't realize was that the promise came with an HOA attached. I'd been on the water all of 20 minutes before the first wave of suburban curiosity hit. 3 golf carts rolled up like reconnaissance vehicles. Out stepped a line of people in polo shirts and sun visors, squinting at my boat as if I'd parked a UFO. The leader, a man who looked like he ironed his jeans, waved a clipboard. "Excuse me, you can't dock that here." "Why not?" I called, friendly enough. "This is a private lake," he said. "Homeowners Association rules." I gestured at the glittering water. "Funny, it looks pretty public from here." The man frowned so hard you could have balanced a ruler on his eyebrows. Within the hour, he called the cops. 2 officers arrived, polite but puzzled. "Sir," one said, "you can't stay docked if it's private property." "Totally understand," I said. "Whose property is it?" He pointed toward a faded sign that read, "Azure Bay Marina, members only." That's when it clicked. The HOA didn't own the lake. They leased part of a marina. I thanked the officers, promised to move, and did exactly what any petty dreamer with Wi-Fi would do next. I searched the county property records. The marina? For sale. The owner, a retired fisherman named Frank, was tired of HOA meetings and insurance paperwork. He wanted out. 30 minutes later, I met Frank at the boat ramp. He had a beard that could hide a small bird and a handshake like a vice. "You serious about buying it?" he asked. "As a heart attack," I said. We settled on a price that was just shy of ridiculous, less than a year SHOA dues for one of those McMansions. He handed me the keys, a single tarnished brass one with a fish charm. "She's all yours, kid." When the HOA president returned with a fresh stack of violation forms, I was standing by the gate, key in hand. "Morning," I said, unlocking the marina gate. He blinked. "What do you think you're doing?" "Opening my property." "You're—" He stopped mid-sentence. "You bought this?" "Yup. Deeds in the works. Guess that makes me your new marina landlord." For a moment, I thought he might explode. His face went through every shade of red known to human skin. I gave him a friendly nod and walked back to my boat. The cops hadn't even left the neighborhood yet. Owning the marina turned out to be both easier and stranger than expected. Half the docks were empty. The other half were rented by quiet, reasonable people who thought the HOA was a bit much. Within days, they treated me like a local hero. I repainted the boathouse, replaced a few rotten planks, and added a hand-painted sign. "Welcome to Azure Bay Commons, everyone's lake." That phrase caught on fast. People who used to avoid the marina started wandering down to check it out. I organized a small dock day the next weekend. Free ice cream, live music from a local guitar duo, and a movie on a projector after sunset. Families came out, curious at first, then stayed until the stars showed. Kids jumped off the docks, dogs splashed, and for the first time anyone could remember, the lake felt alive. The HOA president, whose name turned out to be Clark, watched from his yard like a general studying enemy troop movements. On Monday morning, I got an email. Subject line, formal notice. It accused me of operating an unauthorized public gathering space and demanded I cease all activity immediately. I wrote back, "Dear Clark, I'd love to comply, but the marina is privately owned, by me. You're welcome to stop by for a lemonade, though." He didn't respond. The next week, someone called county inspectors. They came, took one look, and left laughing. "You're following every rule better than most marinas we've seen," one said. That night, as I sat on the deck of the Driftwood Queen, the water smooth as glass, I realized how ridiculous the whole thing was. I hadn't meant to start a revolution, but the moment people saw that the HOA didn't control everything, they loosened up. Neighbors who'd barely spoken in years started chatting on the docks. A retired teacher organized a book club. Teens started kayak races. Even a few former HOA members joined the fun, though they swore it was for research. Then one evening, as I was testing new dock lights, Clark showed up again, this time without the clipboard. "Miller," he said, "you're turning this place into a circus." "More like a festival," I said. "You should come by. We're doing a potluck on Saturday." "I don't do potlucks." "Then come for the view." He stared at the glowing water, the lights, the laughter drifting over the docks. "You really think this chaos is better than order?" I shrugged. "Order's fine. Fun's better." He left without another word. By summer's end, Azure Bay Commons had become the unofficial town hangout. The cafe reopened as the Floating Fork, the boathouse got new paint, and we added solar lights that made the whole place look like a constellation after dark. People started referring to me as the lake guy, which sounded half respectful, half ridiculous, and I loved it. The local paper ran a story, "Man buys marina, HOA loses grip." The headline alone earned me 3 new boat rentals and a glare from Clark every time I passed his yard. Then came the storm, a real one. Thunder, lightning, the works. The old drainage system the HOA had neglected for years clogged, and half the shoreline flooded. Guess who had the only working equipment and generator? I spent 2 days hauling debris, helping neighbors pump out basements, and offering hot coffee to anyone who needed it. When the skies cleared, Clark showed up at the marina, drenched and exhausted. "You saved the day," he said quietly. "Team effort," I replied. He nodded, hesitated, then said, "Maybe the HOA doesn't need to run everything." "Welcome to the club," I said, handing him a towel. He laughed, actually laughed, and I knew the war was over. Months later, the marina was thriving. Families picnicked every weekend, fishermen swapped stories, and the cafe's brunch line stretched around the boathouse. Clark even started volunteering on weekends, teaching kids how to tie boat knots. Someone joked that he'd become our honorary dock master. He didn't deny it. One sunny afternoon, I found a letter in the dock mailbox. Handwritten. "Miller, I admit it. You turned this place around. The lake's better now. We're all better for it. Clark." I pinned it to the cafe corkboard. People smiled when they saw it. By fall, Azure Bay Commons officially became a resident cooperative. Every homeowner could buy a tiny share, not to make money but to keep the place running. When we signed the papers, I reduced my ownership to a single vote like everyone else. It felt right. We threw a celebration that night. Lanterns bobbed on the lake, fireworks burst overhead, and the driftwood queen glowed with string lights. Music echoed over the water as laughter carried through the trees. Clark stood beside me, paper plate in hand. He said, "for a guy who just wanted a quiet place to dock, you made a lot of noise." "Yeah," I said, smiling, "but it was the good kind." He grinned. "What now?" "I keep floating," I said. "Maybe help another lake or two figure out they don't need a dozen bylaws to be happy." The sun dipped behind the trees, turning the sky molten gold. The lake shimmered like a mirror of fire. Kids ran past holding sparklers, and the smell of barbecue drifted over the docks. I looked at the driftwood queen, at the laughing people, at the light dancing on the water, and thought back to that first ridiculous day, the shouting, the cops, the forms, the clipboard. Sometimes life's best stories start with a misunderstanding and end with a marina. The water lapped gently at the posts. A heron flew low across the surface. Somewhere behind me, Clark shouted for someone to bring more lemonade. I leaned against the rail, closed my eyes, and let the sound of the lake fill the air. The world had gone from hostile to harmonious, from HOA notices to handwritten thanks. And for once, I didn't feel like the outsider with the boat. I felt like the guy who finally brought everyone back to the water. The driftwood queen rocked softly beneath me, lights twinkling, the lake calm and endless. It was exactly where I'd always wanted to be.